Hi, you're listening to the Diablo Podcast. We are online at diablopodcast.com. This is a service of diabloinkgamers.com. I am the host, Flux, and I am joined this week by my lovely co-host, Ellie Davis.
Davis,
London Calling. Pip pip.
pip pip,
What?
tally ho.
Step up for lip and all that. All right then. So this is our weekly Diablo podcast news attack covering the happenings in the Diablo community. And continuing with what last week started, it's been very, very busy. Still lots of stuff is being posted from the Blizzard media event last week. We touched on the two controversial issues, the most controversial issues, the auction house with real money and the always online stuff in last week's show. And there's continued to be lots of debate about that, and people on both sides have strong opinions. And I don't know if anyone's ever has anyone changed your mind on any of those issues, or you're just there's lots of sound and fury, and people are going to kind of feel how they're going to kind of feel.
My mind hasn't changed, and I don't think reading the comments, most of the people who are opposite ends of the debate have changed their opinion either. And I don't think Blizzard have.
We ran a site vote last week on the Real Money Auction House and got very widely varied results. And then I put up a new one late last week on the Always Online Connection, and that had much the same. You know, it's a lot of polarized opinions. And the main thing I've learned from those votes is that all my polls are horribly biased and have bad questions that lead people to vote for results that some people don't like.
People only accuse you of that if the poll isn't going their way. Because I think they're pretty well balanced, actually. I think there's options for most opinions.
Yeah, funny how that works. When the votes are not what they think they should be, it's the fault of the questions.
Yeah.
Of course, perhaps the questions could have been worded better, but I certainly didn't make an effort to skew it in either direction. You know, our next vote can be: are the poll questions good? 1, yes. 2, no, I'm an idiot. And 3, words, duh. We could obviously, we're not trying to make these horrible. We're not trying to skew things with the polls. Obviously, I want to get it, try to get to the bottom of the opinions on these things. And I think they're very interesting because, we get a very busy forum thread, or, it might have several hundred comments, or we've had some news posts that have gone well over 100 comments. And the poll gets 6,000 votes. So as far as I know, it's by far the largest sampling of what people who actually care about Diablo think about any of these issues. And just for my own, you agree, of course. Just for my own curiosity, and one thing, I'm always wondering: is it this, the squeaky wheel gets the grease? Are the people commenting just the 1% who are really, really pissed about X, and the majority of people think it's fine and don't really care enough to make a comment?
But they vote because 40% in the current vote, I'm just looking at it now, are quite happy with online only play requirement. So even people sort of not bothered are voting.
But yeah, obviously not everyone agrees with the actual wording of the questions, but the goal is not to try and push an agenda with those. I do that with my news posts and my snarky comments about Bobby's eyes. So, moving right along, first topic, we got an interesting post just recently from our forum community manager Bashiak about the Diablo 3 cinematics. And we heard sort of surprising news from the Blizzard event, I guess it's 2 weeks ago now, that there's introductory movies for all 5 classes, slightly different ones for each gender. And, of course, the genders for Diablo 3, like all online games, are male and male virgin, as you know. And I thought that was pretty clever. Mercy laughed. Or is it only for World of Warcraft? Anyway, the opening cinematics are sort of a two-dimensional looking black and white kind of sepia toned, like a picture book come to life, as it's been described. We've had no visuals of those, unfortunately. And we were all wondering, well, I was wondering at least, if that meant that was all the cinematics in the game, or if we were going to get those full 3D, full color, looks like real people cinematics that we've come to like in the other Blizzard games, and that we got in the Diablo 3 introductory cinematic in 2008. And Bashiak said that yes, we're getting those as well, and the two-dimensional ones are kind of just for the story and the introduction, which I took as good news.
I heard someone say that they're like the 2D ones puts him in mind of the Baldur's Gate 2 ones, which you can find on YouTube, sort of like the book pages turning and the images on the pages moving, that type of thing.
Yeah, and Bashiak mentioned that they're sort of like the Book of Cain, which we saw just about previously, which went up on Amazon for a day and then vanished. And that's also based on this thing called Cain's Journal, which is on the official Diablo 3 site. We've posted all the pictures from that, which is sort of a sketch version. It's like Cain's diary of the plot events of Diablo 2, with illustrations.
Like the
And
Baldur's
apparently
Gate.
and apparently that's what the game, it kind of tells the story like you're reading a book, and then the book comes to life with illustrations and such. And hopefully we'll get some images of those at some point. They are not included in the beta, so people may not see them. We're not going to see them in their entirety, at least until the game itself.
I might just create one of each character
Just
when I
to see
get
the cinematics.
just to see the cinematics and then start playing.
So next topic, the mystery of the Inferno difficulty. On the interview posted on, where was that posted, Ellie? It was an exclusive interview. I can't remember where it was posted though.
It was on a site called Blizzard.com.
In that interview, Mr. Martins just sort of talking about the end game features. He said on the higher difficulty levels, like something like Hell or the Inferno level, etc. And we weren't sure if that was a typo or if he was literally referring to a fourth difficulty level that would be Inferno, or if Inferno was just their term for sort of end game material. You have a take on that?
Well, I thought it's a very unusual turn of phrase to drop into a conversation, unless it is the name of something, isn't it?
And yeah, it was a written interview, certainly. So it's not like he just misspoke or something. And then they wouldn't have posted it with that if he hadn't wanted it to be there.
No, because I mean that goes.
It does seem to be telling us something.
But what if it is a fourth difficulty after Hell difficulty? What will it consist of? It won't just be another run through the same stuff, but even harder.
You'd think not. At least I didn't think so.
Oh God, well I hope not.
Because we know you're going to be your character will be already level 60 or thereabouts when you finish the normal difficulty. So it would seem to be fairly pointless to do the whole thing over again if it was just to make it a little bit more difficult. You would just want to do the parts that you liked best or the parts that were easiest for your character build, I would think.
So what could it consist of?
Well, my thought was that, for one thing that a lot of people suggested is maybe they've just renamed the difficulty levels, and now, the difficulty is just normal, Hell, and Inferno or something like that. But a number of people in the comments pointed out that Bashiok has fairly recently referred to normal, Nightmare, and Hell as difficulty levels and not said Inferno. So it seems like they didn't just rename it. But my take on it is that Blizzard has long talked about the end game of Diablo 3 and how they wanted to do something much better than Diablo 2, where you just, ran the same monsters hundreds of times in a row. And they want to provide more variety and give you like new quests and give you, they realize that players will do whatever is most profitable, even if it's terribly boring. And that's not a great deal of fun, obviously. So they want to give us interesting, varied stuff to do that's also rewarding. And I think they're probably just, Inferno is kind of their catch-all phrase, or it just means end-game PvE content.
Well, it could advance the story a little bit more. I mean, you wouldn't be able to do it until you've done, if there is a fourth one, you wouldn't be able to do it until you've done the other 3 difficulties. So you could easily, on that difficulty, advance the story to something even harder.
I would probably guess not, just because they're trying, they talk so much about how many players don't ever go past normal difficulty and don't play, higher level stuff or even play online that much.
But maybe with something like that at the end of it.
Yeah, but I think they wouldn't want to leave any important story parts only to people who've played a character to level 60. I mean, given the way they're making the game so accessible for noobs.
It doesn't have to be integral, though, does it? Vital. It could be side quests or side stories, maybe following another character, or maybe doing something with the followers.
Yeah, I'm sure they would have some sort of plot reason to it. You wouldn't just, click here for a bonus dungeon. But it would be like, like the comic books or whatever. It would tell a supplemental tale that wasn't essential to know for the main plot itself. Since, as we know, they have plans for 2 expansion packs, and in theory they've written the story of the game to, spread to 6 acts, or however you want to look at it like that. If there's 4 acts in the first one, we get Act 5 and then Act 6. So they would have additional story planned, and they would want to make sure that whatever was in the basic game led into the additional material.
But nobody's denied it yet, have they?
Well, someone asked, there have been many questions apparently asked about it on the Battle.net forums, which have been resolutely ignored by the various community managers. And someone asked it via the Diablo Twitter, and Twitter said, it gave this sort of sarcastic non-denial. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about, I think was the reply. And obviously they wouldn't reply to a tweet if they didn't want people to realize that they were replying to the tweet. They just ignore it. So by saying, I don't know what you're talking about, obviously is kind of, to me, it seems like a very clear tip-off that this is something we're planning and we're not going to tell you about it yet, but be excited about it because we like to tease. But they have repeatedly said, if you guys want to look at the diablowiki.net/endgame, there's lots and lots of quotes from Blizzard people about what they're planning for the end game. And it's all, theoretical. It's all, we want to make it better. We want to give you variety, etc. There's no specifics yet. But they've clearly been planning stuff for a long time. And I think it's kind of cool that they've given it a name. One thing a lot of people have suggested is some kind of a tower defense sort of level where the monsters just keep coming and you see how long you can survive, or an endless dungeon kind of thing where you see how deep you can go into the dungeon.
Well, I hope that isn't it, because that doesn't appeal to me.
Alas.
And it's all about me after all, so.
Exactly. Well, I'll be sure to let Jay know that over lunch tomorrow. Ellie doesn't like this. Make it go away.
Do not take that route. Find some other way.
Speaking of game developers of Diablo series, our next topic is we had a brief interview with Max Schaefer, who was one of the creators of the series and was a lead designer on Diablo 1 and Diablo 2, and is now making Torchlight 2, which is coming soon to a Steam download near you, apparently. And we asked him a number of questions: what he thought about Blizzard's plans for real money trading, what he thought about the auction house, what he thought about the always online, and what did he say, Ellie?
It was it was good news because it was another distinction between Diablo 3 and Torchlight 2.
Yeah, especially in terms of the always online and the no modding stuff, because Torchlight is shipping with fully usable, their torched tool is very good for, it's what they use to make the games themselves. So it's an extremely powerful mod tool, and you can make all your own levels and modify the characters and the skills and the monsters and everything. And it's almost like a sandbox that comes with the game. You can make whatever you want, and which is exactly the opposite of Diablo 3 with no modding, online only, Battle.net only, etc.
Yes.
Do you think Diablo 3 will suffer for a lack of user accessibility and modifications?
I'd have liked to have seen mods. I think if they'd had single player or even multiplayer offline, I think they could have done a mod site, sanctioned mods made by the community, much like they're doing with the StarCraft 2 maps. They could have monetized that.
It's funny you mentioned monetizing, because I was going to say some of the more suspicious, conspiracy-minded people in the community, okay, me, have suggested that this is part of Blizzard's plan. I mean, the online-only stuff is part of their plan and their goal to make everyone play together online-only in the same realm, in the same world, and be part of the same economy and have the same item trading, as opposed to having multiple different versions of the game and allowing people to play it offline, etc. And that in addition to it being a security assistance and helping to block hacks and cheats and such, they want us all in the same big pit, so we'll do more trading and we'll exchange more Bobby bucks.
Kotick credits.
Do you subscribe to that sort of concept, or do you think that's just a happy accident?
No, I think that's the business model, and I think it's a pretty valid business model. But I think they could have also monetized offline play through mods, and it would have been stimulating in the community, because it's quite a big mod making community. Well, there was anyway for D2. So it's a shame that they haven't supported it, and I think they haven't supported it because, like you say, they want to keep people on Battle.net in that Battle.net environment, and unfortunately that means they're not going to allow mods.
Were you surprised at Max's comment? Max has not been afraid to tweak Blizzard or Diablo 3's direction. I mean, we've had quotes from him in the past about things that he didn't agree with, the changes to the game, like the removing of all of the crosses and pentagrams. He thought that was kind of a chicken shit thing to do. And so they were just doing it to dodge controversy. And he said that's something that would not have been done if he was still designing the game. But in the interview questions we asked him, we said, what do you think about the real money trading? And was this something you considered back in the Diablo 2 days or in the early days of your Diablo 3? Which, as Max has told us, just last year, was going to be an MMORPG in their initial designs. And he said, no, I think it's a good idea, and I don't really object to it. And the designers have every right to make you play a game only online if they think that's how their security is going to work.
Yeah, I'm not surprised he said that. I agree with that.
I thought he would be a little more, this is kind of controlling and we don't like that attitude. But I think maybe because they're, Max's stated plans for Runic Games is to make a Torchlight MMO. That would obviously, by definition, have to be online only and be. So I guess he doesn't want to be hoisted on his own petard, as they say. Yeah, it's horrible to have online only. How could they do that? And then, in 3 years, hey, online only Torchlight. Next topic: the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. The most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I hope I've never seen the most beautiful thing I'm ever going to see, because I'm hoping for better in the future, actually. But we did get a bunch of, as we call them, ninja photos from unnamed sources at this Blizzard media event. We got a whole ton of enormously large size, like 3 meg per picture photographs of lots of the game screen, showing all the interfaces and the skills and the resources and game creation options and all kinds of cool stuff like that. And we're going to be posting a bunch of those in the days to come in really high quality pictures. They're very shiny. I've just been staring at them on my computer. One of them that I posted, as you say, was the most beautiful thing anyone had ever seen, which was just a big, really nice quality photo of a flat screen 24-inch Sony monitor displaying the Diablo 3 beta login screen with this beautiful cinematic picture of, God, how do you, Urea? U-R-E-H.
Urea. Urea.
Urea
Urea.
sounds like a part of your excretory orifice that we don't want to speak about. Sounds like
Urea.
something you get. It's like something you get a doctor to check once a year. But
Yeah.
yes, the city is called Ureh, and it's this nice two-towered thing that's kind of ripped off from Lord of the Rings of the city of Gondor, except it's black instead of white because Diablo's evil. Anyway, it's that with the login screen and this huge picture of the monitor, and it's very much a you are there sort of thing. I sort of want to reach out and grab it right through my monitor when I see it. I understand that's the usual reaction you have to a new Justin Bieber video, Ellie.
Oh God. No, I'm not. I'm not a fan. No, I'm looking at it now. It's a very, very nice screenshot. It's a tease, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought, we have lots of these pictures, and I was going to post a bunch of them, and this one I just noticed was just gorgeous, and it was such a large view. I just thought, I'm just going to put this up almost by itself in a news post and just let people drool over it. And for the most part, they did.
They did, didn't they?
Yeah, the comments are just full of, what?
Well, there was one that, oh yeah, no, I won't say what he said, but it got lots of votes up. It was just one, there's just one word. No, was it one or two? It was instant, and then the second word began with a B. So
Virtually, let's hope.
But it got lots of votes up, so I think the sentiment was shared.
And yes, and there's more pretty pictures, and I'm looking at one right now I'm going to post later today. It's actually showing the monk's login screen, and it's got the cool little, the text, the holy warrior who attacks faster than the eye can follow. All this kind of, juicy write-up that's included in the game. Yes, and his cute little outfit. But yeah, lots of cool pictures coming up. And we're going to put some of those in the podcast visuals. So if you're listening to this over iTunes, go look at the YouTube version at whatever point in the podcast this is, and you can see these pretty, pretty pictures Ellie has cleverly inserted with her video editing skills.
Yeah, I won't be doing that after the podcast, though, because it's 5:05 in the morning, so...
You with the time, always the time. Late. Well, you're too busy eating bonbons all day and lolling on your velvet pillows, so we can't record it then. One other interesting point that came up this week, Ellie, is a couple of forum posts from our friend Bashiak, our good friend, Bashiak, best friend.
Bashi.
He made a couple of posts about how Magic Find and Gold Find work in parties, and another one that he replied to on the same topic. A fan asked, if I die and the boss is killed by the other people in my party and it's not right near my corpse, will I get an item drop? Because as we know in Diablo 3, everybody in the area gets their own custom item drop that nobody else can grab up with their
sticky sausage fingers. Brr.
And what do you think about that complaint? And the answer from the Blizzard community manager, which actually might not have been Bashiak, the other guy, the Zarhim, he said, anyway, he might have had his reply, but he said that if you're not there and apparently if your corpse is nearby, you will still get the drop, but if you die and you restart at the last checkpoint, you're running back to the area and the boss is killed when you're not nearby, you will not get a drop for what the boss drops. And everyone else will get their individual drops, and just nothing will drop for you because you weren't there.
For me, it's kind of in the same ballpark as loot leeches. Well, the flip side, really. So you can have a situation where you can contribute very little to the battle, stand at the back, you get the XP, you get the loot, you get the quest if the boss kill is a completer. But then the flip side of that, you can contribute lots, but you get killed before the boss, and as you say, you're not in the proximity of the fight, and you get no XP, no loot, and no quest completion, I assume.
I think you get the quest stuff because you're in the party, but you just wouldn't get the actual drop. You wouldn't get the shiny.
You wouldn't get the shiny, and you wouldn't get the XP, which probably isn't massive consideration anyway. But I think there's a workaround. I think that if you're fighting the boss and say the fight lasts for X minutes, say 3 minutes, you're there present fighting for, say, 85%, but you're not there when the boss dies, why can't you be rolled in for the loot?
Because you were dead and you weren't there.
But if you've been present and fighting for 85% of whatever the fight turns out to be in your case, why can't you be rolled in for the loot?
Because you were dead and you're not there.
I know that's the mechanic.
I feel the items popped and you weren't there, you don't get items. My suggestion, if you're concerned about dying and not getting items,
is don't die.
Don't die!
Yeah, I know. But the loot is a reward, really, isn't it?
You know what it's a reward for? not dying. I come from a hardcore perspective on this, literally hardcore. In hardcore, when you die, you don't ever get loot again, ever. Not just for that one monster that you'd happen to not get. I do have some sympathy, as you're pointing out. You could be the character, you're the barbarian or whatever. You're tanking away the whole battle, working your ass off, doing most of the damage, taking all the risks. And right before it dies, you conk out. Maybe you've already died a couple of times, but you die again. And while you're running back, those freeloading bastards in the back row finish him off. And you can be like, okay, that's kind of, that's a little unfair. I mean, I did all this work and I got nothing for, they couldn't have waited 10 seconds for me to run around the corner and get close enough to finish it. But at the same time, in theory, if you're dying, they've probably been dying as well. They're in danger. They're fighting for their lives. You can't be like, okay, guys, let's all wait for John to get back from the bathroom. Leroy Jenkins is coming back to help us out here. We got to wait for him before we get the drop. You're going to be chopping away, and if it's a big boss, it might take you 50 shots. He'll be some little sliver of health, and it's not like you can see a countdown. 2 more shots, 1 more shot. It might be this shot. It might be 10 more shots. Probably a lot of your missiles are missing, or being resisted, or being negated and damaged. It's a little bit. You want to be partied and friend, but it's kind of a dog eat dog world, and you're all fighting for your life. And if they're waiting for you to get back, they might die, and then you get back and kill it while they're not there. So all's fair in love and loot drops.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that people stop playing and wait for you to come back. I was suggesting that if you've been present for a really high percentage of the fight and you'll unfortunately die at the end, then what's the big deal about rolling you in on the loot?
Well, I guess then you have to worry about exploits. How do you determine if they've been there for long enough? What if they're just hiding in town? Do you...
No. I mean, by Blizzard's definition, you have to be in proximity of the fight. I mean, you can just be stood around doing absolutely nothing and still get full credit as far as the loot's concerned. That's their definition of being involved in a fight, is being nearby to it in the party. So that's what I'm saying. Not in town shopping or fanning around in another level somewhere. I mean, actually in proximity, which is their definition.
Well, if you die, that means you're not there. I mean, that's the whole problem. When you die, you have to restart at the previous checkpoint unless someone can resurrect you on the spot. And if they're fighting a boss, they're probably too busy to resurrect you on the spot.
Yeah. So
you'll be running back from some distance away.
Yeah. I just want to be clear. My only point is, if you have been involved in the fight, which as Blizzard's own definition is in proximity to the fight, but I'm talking about actually being involved in the fight for say 85-90% of the time, and you unfortunately croak at the end and you're making your way back from town, is it completely unreasonable to expect you to be rolled in for the loot?
Yes.
When
yes,
you maybe have been working your way to this boss for 35 minutes, you've taken down everything, you've been totally involved in the actual battle, and then you get sweet Fanny Adams at the end of it. I don't think it's completely unreasonable to say that's not really on.
Well, that's your opinion.
It is. That's why it's coming out of my mouth, because it's my opinion. That's how those things work.
Well, not always. You could be a PR person, and someone else's opinion could come out of your mouth.
Yeah, no, that's my opinion. It's exclusive to me.
Ellie's opinion, appearing exclusively on this podcast.
So you don't agree with that, do you?
Well, I just think there are so few death penalties in the game that I don't have a problem with there being, one thing that doesn't reward you fully just for effort. You have to actually accomplish something and not screw it up to get the reward.
Yeah.
And given the way they've watered down most of the things in Diablo 3 to removing penalties and removing negative incentives, I wouldn't be surprised if they do change it to something like you're suggesting, where you get an A for effort. Just you were there part of the time. Okay, good enough. You get your reward.
No, see, I don't agree with their definition of being involved is being in proximity in the party, not contributing. That's the other side of it. That's gone too far. That's rewarding you for standing there with your thumb up your backside, doing nothing, basically.
I don't know how they would define if you're doing. I mean, if you're standing there shooting arrows the whole time, and that's not really putting you in any danger, but at least you're dealing damage. I mean, how do you differentiate between a wizard or a demon hunter who are providing artillery support but not really risking themselves, versus the barbarian who's actually in there churning along and tanking and almost dying constantly and having to struggle to stay alive.
It's definitely a difficult balance, but you will get people who will just gear up in Magic Find gear and be happy to stand in the wings, as it were, and just offer a bit of support, waiting for the ting.
Yeah, that's the other issue with the personalized item drops, where everybody gets an item. If the person stands in the back and has all Magic Find on and is doing some, miserable little 1% damage, they're getting all the same drops as, whoever's in the front row taking all the risk and doing all the big damage. And it's at least in, obviously people could do that in Diablo 2, but, the drop was for whoever got it first. So if you were 50 feet away in safety, you weren't going to get a whole lot of drops. So of course
Yes.
that wound up people racing in at the last second trying to grab the goodies, which I don't think was wasn't a real great solution. But it seems like whatever they do, there's going to be some way people can complain and say it's either too easy or it's not rewarding enough or it's unfair. One other flip side is if in fact you don't get the loot if you're dead, we might get a scenario where people who are in the front taking the risks see the boss is nearly dead, and if they're nearly dead, they're going to run away and try to heal up some because they don't want it to die while they're not there. So you might get some amusing scenes where the tank, the monster's got 2% health left, and the tank has got 10% health left, and suddenly he runs for his life to get a health globe on the edge of the screen, and all the other characters who've been standing around shooting it from a distance are suddenly in the front row, and mass chaos ensues. It's like, well, I'll see how you like it now.
Yeah.
And that you might use that as an argument for what your point was, is that would be annoying and cause chaos and kind of screw up the game with people doing something weird just to make sure they don't get screwed out of the loot drops. So maybe it's better to give them credit for effort, even if they're not there, just so it doesn't cause them to change their play style radically. Or not. Someday this will be a game we can actually play and see how it works instead of it's just theorizing and hypothesizing everything. Someday.
It's fun to speculate, though.
It'll come someday, right, Mommy? Last topic, Gamescom, coming up soon. Gamescom is a public accessible video game exposition held in Cologne, Germany, and Ink Gamers will be attending, although in this case Ink Gamers is not Ellie Davis. You're sending off some of your minions.
Rushter is going, and John Robertson, who doesn't have a nickname, he's just known as Mr. John Robertson.
Well, that can't do. I have to think of a name for him.
Anyway, he's going, and so is Rushter.
And the Diablo 3 information there may be some new announcements, or may not. Nobody knows. We do know that the playable demo is the 2010 BlizzCon demo, which had the Demon Hunters debut and had the arena in it. So there's not going to be any new information from the gameplay video, but we may well get some interviews or other presentations. Yeah, we'll certainly get some views of the monitors, and it's obviously nice for European fans to get a chance to play it without having to fly all the way to Anaheim. And hopefully we'll get some nice hands-on reports, even though this it's not a new demo version of the game, obviously, but it's always fun to hear people's first time playing it. And I don't think Paul has seen it since 2008 BlizzCon, so it'll be interesting to hear Rushter's take.
Yeah, no, I think that was the last time he played it.
So perhaps, when is that?
It is next week. I know he's definitely there on the 17th.
So by next weekend, so probably in 2 weeks, we'll have Rushter on the podcast for a bit, and he can talk about his play experience and what he thought of it. And it's possible that we will get some new feature systems reveals of Diablo 3. We do not know, and Blizzard has not really teased that, but they're secretive, so we never really know.
Didn't Twitter say, maybe it wasn't Twitter, maybe it was a blue post, it said there definitely wouldn't be something demonic happening?
Yeah, one of the European Twitter outlets, I believe, said, much like that actually sounds a lot like what is the Inferno difficulty? Definitely nothing. So that post was, there definitely won't be something demonic. So obviously here's our non-denial to pique your interest.
Yeah, you never know how to take it, if it's a bluff or a double bluff. But we'll find out soon enough. We'll be there anyway.
Yeah, and by this time next week, we will have hopefully get some new D3 stuff. And they may announce a beta release date, a start window at that point, or they may not. One never knows. And one last thing, I think you wanted to mention, we just got our new server move. We were talking about it last week's show, and the site is super, super zoomy fast.
Yeah, it's just gone up tonight. It stayed up for about an hour, and then it crashed. So but it's up. It's up now. Are you better? You all right? You dying? No, it's stable now, and they've been tweaking it, so we shouldn't have any more problems like we had on the 1st of August. Yeah,
okay, you've been listening to the Diablo podcast. We are online at diablopodcast.com, and we will be back next week with a bunch of new podcasts. I'm recording a couple over the weekend, but next week there'll be lots, and Ellie and I will also be back talking about the news, and hopefully we'll have some Gamescom stuff to talk about by then.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
It's a secret. Unicorn.